This is the assembly video for the V2 SWYFT slide. Now today I'm going to be assembling a 250mm base kit, but the same exact steps will work for a 350mm base kit. The first thing I'm going to do is just take everything out of the box, or out of the bag. So it will come with 3 slides, extrusion, 2 different belts that we will talk about later, a bag of screws and tools, a big pulley, smaller extrusion, some stickers, some Loctite, some more pulleys, Okay, so this is basically everything you should have. So these are 3 slides. If you get the 350mm kit, you'll have the longer ones. This is the extrusion. This one will match the length of your slides. This is the other extrusion. You'll get 2 different belts. One of these belts has a steel core and one of them has a fiberglass core. You can tell the difference if you look in the end of these right here. One of them looks a little bit yellow-ish, and one of them looks kind of chrome. The one that's yellow is fiberglass core, and the one that's chrome is a steel core. Also, you can notice that the matte one, the matte belt, is the fiberglass core, and the shiny belt is the steel core. So why would you want to use one over the other? The steel core is stronger, but it's less efficient. So for this year's game, decode, where you want to use your slides to probably lift your robot up, we'd probably recommend that you use the steel core one, that's the shiny one. But if you want a little bit more efficiency, then you should use the fiberglass one. We also have this custom driven pulley. We also have these idler pulleys. These are metal brackets that go on top of a pulley like this. We have the new motor mount stuff. We have 3 of these side plates. So we have 3 of them that are unlabeled and 3 of them that say SWYFT slide on them. We have these 2 metal brackets, these other 2 metal brackets, and then these 2 pieces that attach your belt, bottle of Loctite, and a bunch of screws and tools in this bag. Before we get started with the assembly, I recommend you take a look at the extended and retracted lengths calculator video that we have posted. This is going to give you a better idea of different ways you can configure your slides. There's a bunch of different ways you can build this. It's very configurable. We recommend you look at that video first, and that will give you a lot more insight into what type of slide you want to build. For this video, we're going to build the slide that I would probably recommend most teams build. Whether you use the 250 or the 350mm, you really only need to use 2 slides for this year's game. That's for the decode season. That's mainly because of the 20-inch expansion limit you have in Endgame. So for this video, I'm going to try to build the slide that I think most teams should use. But please go and watch that video first. There's not a ton of reasons to use 3 slides this year. So that's why we're going to build 2 slides here. And I'll kind of explain along the way some of the different other ways you can configure things. Okay, so with that being said, let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is we are going to attach these side plates onto our slide. So now I should probably mention, you can either build your slide with the belts on the left side or on the right side. once again, I would recommend you go and look at that calculator video. It has a to see whether you want to build your belts on the left or the right side. For this video, it doesn't really matter for most teams' use cases. Most teams are probably going to buy 2 sets of slides, and you're just going to want to mirror one from the other. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we are going to attach this plate onto the slide. Now this is another place where you can configure what type of extension lengths you want based on what holes you choose in this. So you can choose those holes if you want maximum extension, or you can choose like these holes if you want your total slide package to be more compact. For this video, I'm gonna choose this one because this gets you the full 20 inches of extension with 250mm slides. If you are using 350mm slides, I would probably recommend you pick these holes here, because that will also give you the full 20 inches of extension that you need. Okay, so let's open up our screws bag. We're gonna need our tools right now, and we're also gonna need the let me find it. The mount plate to slide. There's a bunch of different bags. They're all labeled, but we only need that one for right now. The mount plate to slide. I'm gonna go ahead and open up this bag and dump out all the screws. Also, we give you Loctite. We highly recommend that every team uses Loctite here. So we're gonna go ahead and I'm gonna unscrew the cap, and I'm gonna squeeze a little bit of Loctite onto that bag. I'm also gonna go ahead and open up the tools bag. We will need the smaller Allen key right now. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is you want to find these shorter flathead screws. We have 2 different sizes in this bag, and you want to find, we have 2 different sizes in this bag, and we want to find the shorter ones right now. And the first thing I'm going to do is, this is pretty important, I'm going to take my index finger like this, and I'm going to dip just the end of it in Loctite. So it looks something like that. You don't need a huge amount of Loctite, just that, and that will keep your screws from unloosening when your robot's going around the field. Okay, and next I'm going to put this screw through that hole of the slide right there. And then I'm going to put this plate like this. And I'm just going to screw it in just a couple of revolutions. So it's still going to be loose, but it's going to be just a little bit attached. So something like that. It's pretty important that you have this opening there, because this is where our pulley is going to be. So make it look something like that. Now, once again, the holes you choose are going to be based on what your CAD and, but this is what I would probably recommend for most teams to do. Okay, and then we want to grab another one of those shorter flathead screws, dip it in a little bit of Loctite, and then put it through this other hole. Oops. Like that. And then we're going to come in with the Allen key kind of like that. Okay, so it should look something like that. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and fully tighten these down now. Also, I'm going to mention when tightening, these screws are not invincible. So I'd recommend you can put as much torque as you want on the screw when the Allen key is like this. Don't try to use this because you could over torque it and damage the screw head. Okay, so now we have that side. Next, we're going to grab one of the plates that does not have the SWYFT slide label on it, and we're going to put it on the other side like this. So in order to do that, we want to take the longer screws. We do not need any Loctite on those. Put the longer screws in here, and we're going to put the plate like that. And then we're going to put the hex nuts we have on the other side. So that's the normal M3 hex nut. Now the reason we don't need Loctite is because these nuts have a nylon patch in them, so they hold the screw from keeping it from coming out. Something like that. Okay, next, what we're going to want to do is we want to add some standoffs here to hold these plates together. We're not going to tighten these immediately because we want to make sure these two plates are aligned before we do that. So we're going to leave this one loose a little bit. Now, depending on what amount of extension you have on these, you might not even need to put these in, but I'm just going to show you how to do it anyway. So you take one of the longer screws, and then you put this spacer on it like that, and it goes through this plate and then into a standoff like that. And actually I forgot to put Loctite in this screw. Let me do that real quick. So Loctite it. I know you can't see it right now, but it should look something like that. And then you want to screw it in. So I'm going to do that one more time. Grab longer screw, put the small spacer on it, dip the end in a little bit of Loctite, grab the longer spacer, put this through the plate, be a little bit tricky. Here we go, like that. And now I'm just going to tighten these by hand a little bit. Okay, you're going to need the longer of the two Allen keys to tighten these fully. Oops. Be a little bit tricky to get all the holes to align, but there we go. Okay, so it should look something a little bit like that. I'm going to screw this one in just a tad more. Okay, so next we're going to go ahead and go back and tighten these two. So we need the smaller Allen key size, and we're going to put the Allen key like this. It's going to be at a little bit of an angle, and then we're going to take the our nut wrench and tighten it from the other side. Like that. And I'm going to do the exact same thing on this side now. Okay. Sometimes it likes to get stuck. Okay, so now we have that. Now, we give you enough stuff to put 3 of these standoff pieces in. So, for example, if you put your slide like way over here, like that, and you want more extension, then you could use all 3 standoffs. But if you put your plate like this and you want less extension, then you don't need any standoffs at all. So yeah. Okay, so we have this piece done. How this is going to work is that we're going to have two slides kind of like on top of each other, like this, and they're kind of going to extend like that. So we have everything we need attached to this piece, and now I'm going to grab the other slide, and this is going to be the one that goes on top, and we need to put the bottom plate on to here. So just double check that your pieces are extending in the same way that I have here. Okay, so this piece is going to be aligned like this. Oops. Like this. And we're going to use a very similar method. Grab the shorter of the flatheads, dip it into a little bit of Loctite. We're going to stick it in there. And we're going to screw this. And I'm going to leave it a little bit loose until I get the second screw. Dip it in a little bit of Loctite. Put it in the other hole. Oops. And now I'm going to fully tighten these. So it should look something like that. So once again, make sure everything looks kind of like this. It will be pretty important. So the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to move the extra screws I have to the side. We do not need them right now. We give you a bunch of extra screws in this kit, and that's pretty intentional. And the next thing I'm going to grab is the Connect Slides bag. And that will be used to connect these two slides together. Okay, so I'm going to grab the only flathead size in this one, and I'm going to dip it in a little bit of Loctite, and we're going to connect these two slides together. So now I'm going to fully extend both of these. It'll make my life easier. And I'm going to take this, I'm going to put it through this hole in here. So it looks like that. And then it's going to go into this slide here. So it might be a little bit hard to see, but you have the flathead sticking out in there. You might be able to see that I'm turning it right now. So now we're going to take the small nut we have, the thin nut, and I'm going to screw it into there. So you can see that it's partially screwed in right now, and I'm just going to leave it there until I do the rest. So I'm going to partially screw it in. Next, I'm going to take another screw, dip it in a little bit of Loctite, put it in this middle spot. So it's going through the slide. You can see it on that side. And I'm going to put the nut on the other side. So it's right there. Okay, and lastly, take one more, dip into a little bit of Loctite. We're going to go through this hole and put a nut on the other side. Okay, so it should look something like that. So now we're going to use 3 screws. You can use 4 if you want. And usually I just pick middle and then the two ends. But to be honest, you can pick kind of whatever you want. And now I'm going to go back and fully tighten all three of these. So that's one tight. Here's the middle one. You might have to hold the nut with your finger on the other side until it catches. And then that's the second one tight. And okay, now it's the third one tight. And now you have these two slides connected together. Okay, next what I'm going to do is we are going to install, or I'm going to put the, we're going to keep these other two screws, and we want to grab another bag that says connect slides in it, and we're gonna dump out those. Because next what we're gonna do is attach the longer extrusion to the bottom of this. This is what the longer extrusion looks like. Don't grab another one of the slides, grab the longer extrusion. And we're gonna do a very similar process as before. I'm gonna extend out this like that. I'm gonna grab the smaller screw again, dip it into a little bit of Loctite, put it on the end here, and this part's pretty important. I'm gonna take a nut and I'm just gonna screw it on like one turn. So you can kind of see that it's not fully screwed in, it's barely screwed in. And I'm gonna do that 2 more times. So take a screw, a little bit of Loctite into the middle. I'm gonna screw on a nut like 1 revolution. It's right there. Okay. Oops. Okay. So now we have all three screws. And make sure all the nuts are on this side. Because what we're going to do is we're going to take this extrusion and we're going to put it through all 3 nuts. So it's like that. Next what I'm going to do is you want to align the extrusion with the end of this and tighten all 3 of them. Okay, I have all 3 of them tightened now. So it should look something like that. Make sure you don't see any gap in here. If you do see a gap, that probably means that when you're sliding in the extrusion, you missed one of the nuts. So it should look something like that. I'm gonna retract it. Okay, next what we're gonna do is we're gonna take the remaining screws that we have out of the connect slides and put them off to the side. And we're gonna put on the belt attachment. So I'm gonna take this and fully extend the last stage, and I'm gonna grab this piece, and I'm gonna grab this really small plate, and we are going to also grab the belt and magnet mount. And I'm going to dump those screws here. Now there are 2 magnets that come with this, and all the screws will want to stick to it. So these are the 2 magnets. We only need 1 of them. So that's the magnet, and we're going to take the flathead screw in this bag, and we're going to put it through the countersink of the magnet. So it should look like that. And now I'm going to dip it into a little bit of Loctite just the end. And this piece is going to end up going right here. So I'm gonna put the magnet in this hole right here. So it looks something like this. If you're building the other side, then you'd want to flip this around and put the magnet on the other side. But it's going to go like that. Okay, next what I'm going to do is take the socket head screws that I have. So they look like this. And we're going to dip it into a little bit of Loctite. And we're going to put it through this plate. And then screw it into this. And we're going to do about 2 revolutions of the screw and leave it a little bit loose like that. And I'm going to copy this 4 times for the other screws. So what we're building right now is the belt clamp that will be used to attach the belt to the end of the slide. Okay, so it should look something like that. We're going to leave them loose for right now. And next, what we're going to do is we're going to attach this piece to here. So you want to grab the flat heads again. The ones that look like that. Dip it into a little bit of Loctite. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be screwing from underneath into these 2 holes, which are going to go into these holes. So, oops, I dropped it. Okay. So from underneath, I have that. And you might notice that there's 2 screws here, or 2 holes here on this side. And we're going to actually want to do the other hole first. And that will tell us which one of those 2 to use. So we're going to use this end hole first. And then we want to screw this in. Once again, tighten it about 90% of the way. So leave it just a little bit loose. So it can still, oops. So it can still wiggle around a little bit. You might run into the issue of these screw heads hitting this plate. And what we're going to do there is just screw these screws in a little bit more. They'll be fully screwed in when we get the belt in. But for right now, let's just, oops, I need a little bit more. There you go. So now they can slide past. Okay. So next I'm going to take another one of those flathead screws, dip it into a little bit of Loctite, and put it through this other hole. Okay, so now I have the second screw in, and I'm going to fully tighten both the first and the second screw. Okay, so it should look something like that. So if you have the 350 millimeter kit, you're going to be using this outer screw instead. So if it ends up using that outer screw, don't worry about it. It's totally fine. Okay, next what we're going to do is we are going to attach another one of these plates on right here. And I'm going to move the rest of the belt and magnet mount screws over here. These are extra screws that we don't need. So I'm going to grab a set of plates again. And we want to grab another bag that says mount plate to slide. And from that bag, we don't need a huge amount of stuff. We're going to use 2 standoffs, or I guess the 2 spacers, 2 of the smaller spacers, 4 of the longer socket heads, and actually we're going to actually use 4 of those smaller spacers. That's because we don't got to attach the plates to the slide. We are attaching them to the extrusion. So this is going to go about right there. So in order to do that, I'm going to take the long socket head and the smaller spacer, dip it into a little bit of Loctite. And what we're going to do is we're going to put it through these holes in the plate. So how this is going to be is that it's going to go on this back side like this. So you want to use the same 2 holes that you used before. Or actually you don't have to, depending on what your CAD says and what type of extension you want. So once again, socket head with a tiny spacer, dip it into a little bit of Loctite, push it through that hole. And on this other side, we're gonna put it through these holes. And I'm gonna partially tighten these now. So now what we're gonna do is a very similar process of putting these spacers in. We're gonna put them in right here. So I have the longer socket heads with the small spacer. I'm gonna dip it into a little bit of Loctite. I'm gonna grab the long spacer and put it in like this. The long socket head screw with the tiny spacer, dip it into a little bit of Loctite, and then put it in like this. So these really help to support both of these plates, and it kind of adds like a box frame, so it adds a lot of strength. So next what I'm going to do is tighten all 4 of these screws. When you tighten these 2 screws, you also want to make sure the plates are somewhat parallel to the extrusion. So it should look a little bit like that. Next, what we're going to be doing is taking the shorter extrusion and we're going to be putting it on to the back right here. So in order to do that, we are going to need to grab these 2 gusset plates. And we also need to grab the extrusion screws bag. Now this bag has a bunch of screws that you could use to attach the slides to something else like a channel or the rest of your frame. I'm going to show you how to do that real quick while we have this bag out. So all 3 of these faces accept one of these screws and they hold it. So if you want to attach this piece to, let's say, a plate or a channel, you would just put the screw in like that, and then you would put your plate on top. Let's say like this is like the plate you want to attach it to. You put it on top, and then you put a nut on the other side, like this. And this would work for any of these sides. It also works for like this bottom face if you want to attach your slides to a channel like that, or one of these side faces. It works for all that. That's not what we are going to be doing right now. I just wanted to quickly explain it. If you need to attach your slides to the rest of your frame. What we're going to be doing right now is grabbing the these long button head screws. We need to grab 4. And we're going to be putting these gussets right here. So I'm going to go ahead and put all 4 of these button head screws through this plate like this. And I'm going to take this extrusion. One side of it has holes, one does not. I'm going to be putting it like that. So it should look something like that. And then we're going to be putting it in like that. And then on the other side, we're going to put on the same gusset plate. Like that. And then 4 of the nuts. It can be a little bit tricky to thread these on. So it should look something like that. Okay, and now what we're going to do is I'm just going to take the smaller of the Allen keys, and I'm going to screw that in while screwing in the nut driver. So it looks something like that, fully tightened now. Okay, next what I'm going to do is slide the motor on. So we have our 2 screws there, and we have our rail right there, and we're going to put the motor into the rail like that. And I'm going to slide it all the way down, and I'm going to tighten these screws. That's one of them tight. Okay. Now both of those screws are tight and the motor mount is fixed. Okay, next what we're going to do is we are going to attach the pulleys to these 3 plates. So in order to do that, you need 3 pulleys. You also need these 3 metal brackets, and you need to find the screw bag that says mount pulley to plate. So the first thing I'm going to do is take the longer button head screw, dip it into a little bit of Loctite, have it go through that plate so it looks like that, and we're going to have it up. We're going to put the pulley on this side. And this is going to go in right there, like that. I'm going to take the shorter, the button head screws, dip into a little bit of Loctite, and put it through this other hole. So now I'm going to fully tighten the smaller of the button head screws. And what I want to do is want to spin this pulley with my finger and slightly tighten the screw, and then check to make sure the pulley is free spinning. Tighten the screw, check to make sure the pulley is free spinning. Tighten the screw, check to make sure the pulley is free spinning. And now you can see that I tightened it a little bit too far, and now the pulley is not free spinning. So I want to just loosen it a little bit. And now the pulley is free spinning. And we're going to do that exact same process with these other ones. So I'm going to take another one of the button heads, dip it into Loctite, put it in this bracket, put the pulley in like that. We're going to screw it into here. So it looks like that. Take the smaller button head, a little bit of Loctite, fully tighten this short screw, and then tighten this one while checking to make sure this is free spinning. So I want a little bit too much, and I'm gonna back it off just a tiny bit, and now it's good. Okay, and one more time, we're gonna put the third one right there. Exact same process. Fully tighten the short one, and then tighten this one, making sure it's still free spinning. Okay, so now we have all three of those pulleys on. We do give you washers that you can also add. If you're running into the issue where these screws are, or the pulleys are not wanting to be free spinning, you can add a washer in between the pulley and this metal bracket. We typically don't recommend this because it makes them a little bit weaker, because the thread length of these screws are a little bit less into the long plates. But we do have it if you need it. Okay, next what we need to do is attach the belt. So for this video, I'm going to be using the fiberglass core belt. It's a little bit of the weaker of the two belts, but it is more efficient. To be honest, most teams should, if you're using 2 slide kits, then using the fiberglass core belt is probably pretty good. If you're using, if you just have 1 slide kit, then the steel core is probably the way to go. So once again, you have the mat belt, which is the fiberglass one, and the steel core belt, which is the shiny one. So I'm going to push it through here first. You want to make sure it's going through these two plates. If the plates are together, you need to separate them. And then we're going to push it through this pulley. And what we're going to do here is, we just need to turn your needs to go around here, and then you need to turn the your driving pulley. And then this one has to go underneath like that. So it should look like that. Now that was a bit difficult for me because I'm using a 50-to-1 SWYFT spike motor, which is, it has quite a bit of torque. If you're using two motors, then probably around 27-to-1 is good. If you're using one motor, you probably need about 50-to-1 in order to climb your robot. Okay, so I'm gonna move this belt along, and it's gonna go into here next, and then back here, and then up to this one, so it looks like that. Okay, so this is what the entire loop should look like. So what I'm going to do now is just going to take both of these belts in my hand, and I'm going to try to move them apart. That's going to tension everything, and what I'm going to do is screw in these 4 screws. I recommend you first do the corners. And yeah, screwing in the corners will allow you to, for your belt to hold itself. You can see that it's being squashed between those 2 plates, which provide a solid grip. And then you're going to want to screw in the other screws. Okay, so now I have all 4 of those screws fully tightened. Next thing we're going to do is cut the ends of the belt. I just have some wire cutters here, and I'm going to just cut the ends of this belt off. Now, if you're cutting the steel core belt, I would be a little bit careful because there is steel inside. You might be able to just make sure that the ends of it don't have any steel poking out that could hurt somebody. And I usually just trim this as short as it can be. You should have enough belt to make about 2 slides. Okay, so there we have it. Everything is basically fully built. And that's how you build the V2 slide kit. You can see that it does require a lot of force because we're using such a high gear ratio motor, but that means that it does have a huge amount of torque. If you want to attach the slide kit to something else, I'm going to show you again how you would do that. One of the best ways is you put a screw in this bottom rail here, and then you attach your plate and then put a nut on it. You can also do it to any of these slots in here. If you need to attach something to the end, what you can do is use one of the our flathead screws and put it through the bottom of this like that, and you can put a plate on here or a channel or whatever, and then put a nut on top. That's partially why we give you so many extra screws. It's just so you can use it to attach to things, or if you're building the 3-stage version, you can use that. Yeah, let us know if you have any questions, and thank you.